Hi everyone, David Aragona here with my Derby Watch co-host Brad Free to talk about one of the major prep races coming up for this final round of preps this weekend. Saturday at Santa Anita, the feature race is the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby. And Brad, this is probably the most important prep regarding talent level moving forwards towards the Kentucky Derby, because I think the two horses that we've got as the favorites on our Derby Watch list, Journalism and Citizen Bull, are both competing here. However, they're only facing three rivals. It's just a field of five, and that is going to alter the points calculus for this race as it pertains to the other rivals that are lining up against them.
Yeah, this is the smallest Kentucky Derby field since 2006 when Brother Derek raced Gate to Wire at a short price. Only 5 entered this year's Santa Anita Derby, and the points are therefore reduced. It should be 100, 50, and 25 for the 1, 2, 3 finishers, but with 5 starters, Churchill Downs, and they made this public a long time ago, the points are reduced by 25%. The winner only gets 75%. The runner-up 37.5, and the third place finisher 18.75. It's not a big deal for Journalism and Citizen Bull. They have 47.5 and 60 points respectively that are both in the Derby field, but Westwood and Baeza both have 0 points. They have to win this race to ensure themselves a Derby berth, and Barnes has to run at least second because he only has 18.75 points right now. So it's kind of a bizarre situation. We have races like the Virginia Derby around one turn that get a full allotment of points, the Jeff Ruby that gets a full allotment of points even though it's synthetic. But out at Santa Anita, if we have a small field, points are reduced. Those are the games that we're playing this time around, and it's not a must-win situation for Journalism or Citizen Bull.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was the intention of Churchill Downs, but it is playing out to be a little tough on California with the way that this rule is working out. And Bob Baffert has not been afraid to enter multiple horses in these races to make them go with the max amount of points. Interesting, he doesn't do that for Barnes, maybe putting a third horse in this race. He elects to just go with those two main players. John Sheriffs, as you mentioned, did enter one extra horse in Westwood, likely a long shot, to at least make it a 5-horse field for Baeza, who is the main runner from that barn. Before we get to the contenders of this race, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector, because I think pace is going to be integral to the outcome of the Santa Anita Derby. Obviously, both of the Bob Baffert horses have shown good early speed of their races, and this Timeform US pace projection is based purely on the fractions that these horses have run in their prior races. And you can see, just looking at the form, Barnes is coming out of faster paced races generally than Citizen Bull is. I mean, 2 of his prior 3 races have been sprint races, so he's going to naturally run faster. So Barnes has the early speed to potentially get to the lead, but Brad, as we know, there's often a lot of choreography going on with the 2 runners from the Baffert barn. When both have speed, one is likely to go. They're not likely to pressure each other. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out when the gates open.
No, there's no doubt about it. The 2 Bafferts are the 2 speeds. That much we can agree on. Who makes the lead? I think it's probably going to be Citizen Bull, and I say that for a couple reasons. First of all, he's always on the lead. That's his style. Citizen Bull goes to the front, gets comfortable, and he's long gone. Barnes is a fast horse. However, Baffert has been trying to ration this horse's speed in the mornings. He took blinkers off for a couple of workouts that were not very good at all, trying to get him to settle a little bit. He put blinkers on for a workout on Monday morning, took him back behind an overmatched stablemate, and let Barnes come and catch that stablemate and draw away. But you can see what Baffert is trying to do with Barnes. He is trying to get him to conserve his energy, to run into the bridle, and then to deliver a blast home. And I'm not sure if Barnes actually has that in him, but Baffert is training Barnes to come from behind. Now, look, if Citizen Bull doesn't break or something happens, Barnes could easily inherit the lead. But I think that the 2 Bafferts are going to be positioned 1-2 going into the first turn.
I think the wild card with that scenario could be Baeza, because he's drawn outside of them, and if Barnes is not ridden aggressively, maybe there will be a bit of an opportunity for Hector Berrios to go forward and not get caught 3 wide going into that clubhouse turn. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and we can talk more about that when we get to Baeza. But let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the horse to beat the number 1, Journalism. He, at this point, is the early favorite for the Kentucky Derby based on this performance here in the San Felipe when he came off the layoff to make make his 3-year-old debut. Barnes was bet down to favoritism in this race, and look, coming to the quarter pole, like that rival had the race won, but Journalism pops outside, and as soon as he lengthens this stride, he's able to reel in Barnes and run on to an impressive victory. And Brad, as soon as we got the buyer for this race, a 108, it became apparent that we had a major contender for the Kentucky Derby on our hands.
This is a serious racehorse, and he's the proper favorite for the Kentucky Derby right now. That race was only 1 mile and 1/16. He's stretching out another 1/16 of a mile to go 1 mile and 1/8 Saturday in the Santa Anita Derby. Everything that this horse has ever done in his races suggests that the longer, the better. He's sired by Curlin. He was produced by a graded stakes winning 2-turn mare by the name of Mopatism. And the biggest concern that I would have as a fan of Journalism is, did he run too fast in his comeback race? A 108 buyer speed figure coming in off a layoff of almost 3 months is a giant number. So the question is, will he react? Will he bounce off that race? I'm going to say the answer, I don't know this for sure, but I don't think he will. Watching him train in the mornings, watching how he works, how he drills, how he conducts himself in jogging, galloping, and workouts, Journalism gives no signs of a horse that's going to back up. If anything, he might even move forward. And if he moves forward, then all of a sudden his price for the Kentucky Derby drops even further, because he'll win the Santa Anita Derby. He's the fastest horse going into the race. He just has to work out a trip, and he has to reproduce his most recent number. I think he can do both those. He's going to be the horse to beat. He'll be a short price. It's very difficult to find value in a 5-horse field. But Journalism, he's the right favorite for not only the Santa Anita Derby, but also the Kentucky Derby moving forward.
Yeah, I agree about his workouts. It looks like he is holding his form coming into this race. And one point I would make about that big buyer improvement last time is it's very easy to look back at the Los Alamitos Futurity and make the case that maybe the buyer team had that race a little low. They're not going to go back and revise the number of graded stakes at this point in time, but a lot of horses have come back out of that race to suggest that maybe that was a buyer that should have been somewhere in the mid-90s. The number 2 is Citizen Bull, the main rival for the likely favorite, Journalism. And this horse is the last year's 2-year-old champion. He has done nothing wrong since stretching out in distance, won all 3 of those 2-turn starts. We'll take a look at the most recent of those when he was victorious in the Robert B. Lewis. Now, this is going all the way back to early February, so he's coming into this final Derby prep off about a 2-month break, but he's trained right on through. He's got his own set of fast, impressive drills coming in here for Bob Baffert, who does ask quite a bit of his horses in the morning, and this horse has responded to that aggressive training. I think the big question for this horse, Brad, is the 9 furlongs. Is this a horse that is going to continue to get better with added distance? But maybe we won't find out that answer here, because he may not get pressured up front.
Well, it's interesting that Citizen Bull was one of Bob Baffert's first 2-year-old winners last summer at Del Mar, racing 5.5 furlongs. And now here he is. We're talking about him in the context of 1 1/4 miles the first Saturday in May. He has been a top-class colt since he entered training. He's won 4 of his 5 races. I don't think that the extra furlong is going to be an issue on Saturday for Citizen Bull in the Santa Anita Derby. I'm not so sure about 1 1/4 miles at Churchill Downs, but this weekend, it's all going to depend on how the pace unfolds, because if Barnes takes back, then Citizen Bull is once again loose on the lead for what would be his 4th consecutive start. And if he gets loose, he's very, very difficult to run down. The Santa Anita main track this winter has not been as speed favoring, as speed conducive as it has been in years past, but loose on the lead is always the best trip in racing. And I can see Citizen Bull breaking well, making the lead, getting comfortable, and being long gone, because Journalism might be in a situation where he's trying to catch a horse who's running faster than he is through the stretch.
The number 3, Westwood, is going to be easily the biggest price of the 5 runners in this race. It feels like he's just participating here so that Sean Sheriffs can get 5 runners in the field and at least give his main horse, Baeza, a chance to get the points that he needs. Because this horse, while he has some talent, Brad, he's still green. It just doesn't look like he's quite ready for a race like this.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose for Westwood being in this race, to make sure that there's at least 5 starters. If there were only 4 starters, then the Derby points scheme drops down to 50, 25, and 12 and a half for 3rd place finishers. So Sheriffs and owners Lee and Susan Searing are trying to get Baeza into the Kentucky Derby. So they put this maiden in the Santa Anita Derby to make it a 5-horse field, increase the likelihood that Baeza can maybe maybe still get into the Derby, even if he only finishes second. We'll see about that. But Westwood, look, he's not impossible. And I say this because he was gelded prior to his February 14th comeback, and he actually ran well against Baez. He made a looming move at the quarter pole, and then he flattened out. That was his first start since summer. And then he came right back and reproduced the effort, finishing second behind Voldemort. Voldemort raced gate to wire. Westwood rallied from behind. He closed the gap. He earned an 81 Beyer speed figure. That's nowhere close to what will be required on Saturday. But he is a lightly raced horse. He appears to be a better horse since he was gelded. He was gelded due to a bad attitude. He didn't want to do anything the sheriffs wanted him to do, so they gelded him. This is biting off way more than he can probably chew right now. But in a small field, crazier things have happened.
The biggest wild card in the Santa Anita Derby is probably Barnes, because he was the hot horse moving into the winter after his victory in the San Vicente. On a lot of people's early lines, he was the favorite. In the future wagers, he just was consistently the early favorite for the Kentucky Derby based on 2 one-turn races. They stretched him out for the first time in the San Felipe, went off as the 2-5 favorite. And Brad, it looked like he had the race won coming to the quarter pole, but he just could not contain that late run of journalism to the stretch. We saw the replay of that race earlier, and Barnes not exactly looking like a horse that was going to continue to get better with added distance. But then the Beyer speed figures came back. He still earned a 105 Beyer, his best number yet, by 12 points. The workouts since then, though, have made me continue to question whether or not we're going to see further progression from this horse. I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yeah, that 105 Beyer speed figure that he earned in the San Felipe would have won the San Felipe in most years. He finished, a million miles clear of third. But since then, I think Baffert is cognizant of the potential distance limitations for this colt that they spent $3.2 million on. And he's been high profile, a big price tag as a yearling. He was Baffert's first starter at Churchill Downs since Churchill Downs lifted the ban of his. So Barnes has always been in the limelight. I thought he ran terrific in the San Felipe, but his subsequent workouts, Baffert took blinkers off, trying to get Barnes to kind of ration his speed to allow him to stay a longer distance. But with blinkers off, Barnes was not that great in the mornings. This is a horse who usually touts himself in morning workouts with blinkers on. But with blinkers off, he was second best in back-to-back workouts. Baffert finally put blinkers on Monday morning for his final workout. It was a short little workout against an overmatched maiden filly who was only in there to be used as a target for Barnes. Barnes was adding blinkers, broke off behind his workmate. His workmate drifted off the rail into the stretch to allow Barnes that nice convenient path through, and Barnes took care of business. But he was working against a maiden filly who has no resume. Barnes had to look good in that workout. I have the same doubts as you, David. Maybe Barnes ran too fast himself. That was his first start around 2 turns, a 105 Beyer speed figure. Maybe he's not a 2-turn horse. And it's very difficult to endorse him off what we've seen in the mornings and how Baffert is continuing to kind of tinker with his equipment. So I'm going to take a stand against Barnes, recognizing that this horse is a very good horse. You don't earn a 105 Beyer speed figure just by luck. I'm going to take a stand against him in the Santa Anita Derby, and Baffert could prove us both wrong.
Yeah, I'm leading in the same direction as you, but as you said, he's got that 105 Beyer, the second fastest of anybody in this crop, so we'll see if we are underrating him in not the wisest fashion. That we'll find out on Saturday. The 5 is Baeza completing this field, the other John Sheriff's runner. He's the main runner for this barn, and he finally got the job done in his 3rd career start. We'll take a look at the replay of that race where he showed improved tactical speed, second time on dirt, second time blinkers, just seemed like he was way more dialed in, took this race over prior to the quarter pole, and finishes off this race like he will continue to go on in distance. The 93 Beyer that he got here, Brad, it doesn't quite stack up against the number journalism posted last time, but it's still a very good speed figure for a maiden special weight winner. And they're going to bite off a big chunk of this Kentucky Derby trail, trying to go for all of the points in the Santa Anita Derby. It's taken a big risk here to try to do it all in one race, but he might have the talent to pull it off. He certainly has the pedigree to do so.
There's no doubt he has the pedigree. He's a half-brother to 2023 Kentucky Derby winner Mage, a half-brother to 2024 Belmont winner Dornoch, and Baeza has been very well regarded ever since he was purchased for $1.2 million. His very first career start was a 9th place finish on turf at Del Mar. It was nothing more than an educational prep. Second time out, he ran better against Rodriguez in a maiden race, and he put it all together. Maybe put it all together is not the right phrase to use, because you could see in the stretch of his maiden win, when Barrios smacked him right-handed, Baeza took a left-hand turn. He's still a little bit green. He only has 3 starts under his belt, but John Sheriff has turned up the heat on Baeza in morning workouts, working him in company, giving him strong gallops. Sheriff knows what's at stake this Saturday in the Santa Anita Derby. He needs to win this race to ensure himself a berth in the Kentucky Derby. He has the pedigree. He has improving speed figures. John Sheriff knows what it takes to win the Kentucky Derby. He did it 20 years ago with an impossible horse, Giacomo. Baeza is not at the least bit impossible. What he does face is a speed figure deficit. He's some 15 points inferior to Journalism, 12 points under Barnes. So Baeza is going to have to run faster than he ever has. I think he will. The question is, will Journalism and or Barnes, even Citizen Bull, back up enough to allow Baeza the chance to spring an upset? I wanted to pick him in the Santa Anita Derby, Baeza, but I just couldn't do it. He's not quite fast enough yet. But if he's the right price, if he starts at 5 or 6 to 1, I'll be very, very interested. I think that Baeza is in with a big chance in the Santa Anita Derby. And if he runs well this weekend, I'd love to see him in the starting gate on the first Saturday in May.
Yeah, Brad, as we've done the Derby watch over the past several weeks, you've been beating the drum for this horse for a while. And, you know, when I went to handicap this race, I ended up liking him more than I thought I would. I mean, I think you had a point with him. And I wonder how aggressive they're going to be, because I see those workouts coming in here, 1:10-2 for 6 furlongs back on March 15th. That does not strike me as characteristic of John Sheriff. So this horse is definitely finely tuned for this race. And I wonder if there is a plan to ride him a little more aggressively to give themselves a shot, because if they ride passively and hand the race to Citizen Bull, I wonder if this horse is not going to be able to get the job done.
Well, Baeza, he's going to have to be in the race, but I think the last thing they want to see is Baeza on the lead, because he does best in the mornings and in the afternoons when he's chasing a target. So I think that they would love to be sitting second behind Citizen Bull. And if they are, I know that Baeza is going to deliver a finishing kick. Everything that he has ever done in his workouts and his races, his best movement, his best stride has been at the wire. He gets stronger as the race goes on. So he'll have no problem with the distance, Baeza. The question is he fast enough to catch the likes of Journalism and Citizen Bull?
Well, let's throw up our picks for the Santa Anita Derby. And Brad, I was kind of envisioning the race exactly the way that you just laid out. Maybe Baeza will be sitting second to Citizen Bull, and I think he will get the distance better. I just think if he applies that pressure, it might still set the race up for Journalism if there is an honest pace for him to close into. And I just couldn't get past Journalism being a cut above these horses and wanting the distance more. I get the sense you feel the same way.
David, I feel exactly the same way. I'm always trying to go against a favorite. But look, you know, it's staring us right in the face. This is a serious racehorse. He's a 2-time graded stakes winner. Every race that he has run has been better than the previous. He's in the right hands. Michael McCarthy is a relatively young trainer. He's already won the Preakness Stakes. I think that Journalism is a serious racehorse, not only this Saturday, but also a month from now in Kentucky.
Well, both Brad and I have Journalism on top in the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby on Saturday. 1-2-5-4 for Brad, 1-5-2-4 for me. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.